Yeah, so we have a little bit of a new audience, but we won't do the whole discussion again. Just the.
So we recommend that they watch it if they want to know a little the background of what we're discussing today. About the hashkafic, philosophic, Kabbalistic ideas behind the 12th step. That's something we went in and also shared a little of our own personal journeys. So we talked about, we offered, a follow-up session to those that, wanted a little taste of understanding of meditation and consciousness according to Kabbalah and Chassidus, and how that is a key part of any radical growth and spiritual change. And even the founders of the 12 steps, that really was their MO. And their goal was to realize that, that they heard from Jung, that they heard from other organizations around them, that, Bill Wilson had known in his own experience that led him to explore LSD as breakthrough techniques in the 50s. That they really felt that the spiritual experience is the core transformational opportunity available to humanity. More than group therapy and more than personal sharing and more than just inner work, that there was a core behind it which causes radical shifts. And that's something that a lot of the Christian mystics that AA was based on, was sourced on, that really was also informed by the Jewish mystics, of course, goes without saying. So that's part of
one of the steps as well.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's right in there, right?
Step 11.
So, we thought we'd have a little time to focus on some of that experiential stuff today, both in theory and practice. I want to discuss a little about consciousness from a Hasidic perspective, a Kabbalistic perspective, to understand how addiction is formed within consciousness. And then we will explore together, a little bit of, dip our toes in to, some deeper meditational experiences. I bet some of you have done mindfulness. So this is going about 400 steps past mindfulness. We're just going to take a deep dive. If people have played around with mindfulness before, say yes in the box. And if you have not, say no. Let's get a sense of who's had lots of yeses. Any no's? There's a no in there. One no. Great. Okay. So you don't have to. It's just interesting to know what are people coming in with. People here who are here today, I'm learning this terrain, Ellie. I guess you can't ask who is an addict or who is present tense in, working the program. But, if I was in a group, I'd want to know more because I want to understand where everyone's up to. So I'm obviously not asking for that level of disclosure, but I'm interested to know who has used meditation in a serious, deep way as part of their own healing process. And I definitely consider addiction. If you have a cell phone, you're probably dealing with addiction as well. If you're on social media, you probably do. And even psychologically, it's not a joke. It does fit some of the descriptions. So I'm interested to know who has used meditation, in depth as an in-depth practice, and who's kind of like flirting with it, for lack of a better term. So let's see a little what people say, just to understand who's here. So we've got some no, floating, maybe they've been flirting, maybe they're floating with it, meditation, that's great. Lots of EFT, great. Daily, serious, very light, yes, no, maybe, fleur, dabbling, fine. It's good to know a little of where we're up to. I see some familiar names and wonderfully lots of unfamiliar names. Okay, Ellie, where are we starting today?
Where are we starting? I think a little bit in terms of the steps, something I heard. I don't know the reference. Maybe someone on the call knows the reference. They could put it in the chat box. But I've heard that if someone has done the steps and they're struggling, that one of the founders, I've heard in the name of the founder, that their problem has to be in the 11th step. If they've already worked the 12 steps, problem has to be in the 11th step. And the 11th step reads, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for the knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out.
Unbelievable to me. That is unbelievable. I could talk about why it's unbelievable. I think it's unbelievable. Again, no matter what I say here, I'm definitely probably the most ignorant person in the room about 12 steps. And thank God in my personal life, I've never suffered from that kind of addiction in that kind of sense. But I believe, as I was talking, last week, in a beautiful conversation with Ellie, that if you are a true spiritual seeker and you've been, in this generation, we call it a psychonaut, right? You're interested in in exploration of pushing the thresholds of consciousness and all different ways that can be induced in meditation and personal transformation techniques, you begin to understand some rules about reality and rules about consciousness, which transcends Jew or non-Jew or religious or secular or believer or non-believer or addict or healthy person. I don't know if it actually is the opposite, and that's a discussion point. But the core of it is, if you cannot get a breakthrough, it's because you're not opening up your consciousness on a regular level to a divine influx, which is, according to Hasidus and Kabbalah and the Torah, the root and source of all healing, of all transformation, as we began by saying. So he couldn't lay it down more clearly to really say it comes down to meditational practice. And I believe that, I believe he says the word meditation and prayer. Is that correct, Ellie?
Sought through prayer and meditation, yeah, both.
Right. So I love Judaism, I love Torah, and some of my best friends are Torah Jews, so I'm certainly not here to offend anyone. But I do believe you can pray and pray and pray for years and it has no effect on your healing. And you can pray and pray and pray for years, and a person can still be an addict or still be for lack of a more scientific word, an idiot, right? It's not getting a breakthrough, it's not helping them. And I believe, we teach in the Elevation Project seminars and retreats around the world, and we literally taught thousands of people. We have an online program as well. And the shift that religious Jews go through when they learn these teachings of daily formal Jewish prayer with no awareness of Devakas to open their consciousness, versus daily formal Jewish prayer, which is focused primarily on transcendence of consciousness, that divine connection, is the difference between day and night, is the difference between healthy and unhealthy, is the difference of seeing supernatural transformation. Bira Hanefesh Bahamas, Tikkun Amidus, all these things that, even from the Chabad Tzadikim say is what happens when you pray. The Rebbe Rashab defines the two fundamental elements of prayer, right? And when I say these two fundamental elements of prayer from a Torah perspective, from a Hasidic perspective, I just want to be aware, and I'm not obviously attacking, we're just trying to open up things a little deeper. It's possible, yes, that a Torah Jew could pray 3 times a day all their life according to the basic level of halacha and literally never do this at all. And he defines the two levels as one is Devakas, to experience a transcendent level of consciousness, one and unified with the source of all reality, the unified field of consciousness of divinity, of Hashem, of source. That's the first definition of tefillah. And the second definition of tefillah is Bira Hanefesh Bahamas, Tikkun Amidus, that when a person moves into a higher state, it causes an influx of light, of energy, that radically shifts our trauma, our addictions, our associations, our clippers, our habits, our taiva, gaiva, kinam, and kavod, our lust, our fear, our jealousy, our pain. And it radically transforms that. So the essence is prayer, but prayer as a dogmatic repetition of external words is not the mechanism that causes the transformation. And I've also met and discussed with people involved with 12-step programs, and they can also, I'm not saying the majority, I'm saying individuals, they can say, I'm going through the process, but it's not working. And that's because they're kind of doing things, I'm praying, I'm technically praying, right? But that they're not turning on the light within. And I believe that, that's what the Baal Shem Tov very much wanted to bring back to the table, is to show people how to access the states of consciousness, which prayer done in a skillful manner was supposed to awaken and induce. But prayer not done with that would not have that effect.
Are you saying it's pointless?
Reading a Hebrew prayer book without any deeper connection or emotional connection, I believe it could be argued by already the Talmud that it's pointless. Daniel Katz's opinion doesn't mean very much. That the Talmud says that, to feel a prayer without kavana, right? There's many sources that say this, but it is like a body without a soul, is like a guf without a neshama. The Talmud defines prayer as the avodah shebalev, the service of the heart. It's not the service of just, as the Navi said, speaking words, but not having any connection through them. And I believe that the founder of AA, when he's saying prayer and or meditation, whatever the language he's using, this is the point he's indicating. And this is not theory. I'm not theorizing with you. If you study his history and his journey, he had those supernatural breakthrough experiences. And that is what AAA was set up to facilitate in individuals. When I've been teaching meditation for 10 plus years and experienced many things in my own life before that, that's exactly the message that we're giving, is the message he gave. So the question for me to be the most helpful to people, Ellie and I, you and I are doing this because we're trying to be helpful to people, is the fastest you can teach people to access that light within, the faster you can cause any growth. When people come to me for individual, I don't do this so much anymore. Now we teach en masse. When people wanted like individual inner work, I would only teach them inner work once I taught them how to access that state, because then everything they did after that would be exponentially, impactful. So yes, I believe it's obvious to say, is it doing nothing at all to say the words in a meaningless way? I'd say it's a bit more than nothing. You're doing something because you know it's the right thing. You're trying to connect to it. I'm not here to judge, but if you knew the opportunity that is there, if you just turned on the light and then said the Hebrew words with the light on, that's what the Baal Shem Tov taught, that the Hebrew words can knock you into higher places and states. And that is the healing I believe we're all seeking.
Does it make sense to you why this step would be only number 11 after, we discussed it a little bit last week going through some of those steps, but that's a question I've always had. I didn't understand why it's prayer and meditation are introduced so late in the steps.
Right. So I believe my understanding as I gave over last week is there is a very clear order that I see he's delivering there. And basically, I don't believe he's saying that as the last step, the 11th step. I believe he's saying in the first, second, and third step, okay, you have to have the divine experience in the first, second, and third step. Then you have to leverage it for personal transformation and responsibility to work through your junk and baggage. And then I believe that those last few steps are about now you must maintain that, right?
Yes, a lot of people refer to it as maintenance steps, not as,
right.
It's not a one and done.
Right. So I believe the first 3 steps are a no-brainer. I can show you, it's not about belief, that he wants you to have that spiritual experience. When you say I'm hit rock bottom, you say, Hashem, it's all up to you, however you understand God. That's when a person can open themselves with the right understanding to that mechanism. And you leverage that to work through your past, your history, to unravel the knot that is our consciousness. And then the last step is, it's not maintenance as an optional extra. It's maintenance as in this will now bring you not the surviving, but the thriving, that you're constantly on a daily level, reconnecting to your source, realigning yourself, releasing the pain, the anxiety, not letting it build up for decades, which causes the addiction, right? And now taking the responsibility to have a life of blessing, of joy, of celebration, because my connection, I'm constantly living aligned.
So how do you define the word meditation? And is it the way it's used either through TM or mindfulness meditation, which I think are the 2 most common practices in the world?
Right.
Is it the same word? Is it the same meaning when you use the word dvekas or meditation?
Well, Torah has, the word for meditation in Torah is hisbodedus. There are a few different words. Dvekas is a meditation. Hisbodedus is the classic general term. And hisbodedus is a term that literally means to self-isolate, to quarantine. But it's used from Avraham ben Rambam with a very specific meaning. And what he defines it as is, the Kabbalists talk that when you want to meditate, you have to go to a fast, you have to go to a quiet room in your house, you have to step away from the noise of life to come back to the self. But Avraham ben Rambam says it more specifically, that you're actually self-isolating yourself within yourself. You're going to the pristine, open, divine part of your consciousness and stepping out of your dinyon, the noise of the external mind. So in Kabbalah and Chassidus and Torah and Shulchan Aruch, the ultimate meditation is divine bonding and connection. And that is the source of all transformation and healing and opportunity. But there are many different mechanisms and benefits of different tools on the way to that and from that. Mindfulness is brought down in multiple Torah sources, including the Shulchan Aruch, that discussed to which is called Yishuv Das, to settle the mind from the noise of the world, to return to your das, to yourself, to your consciousness. TM is called Derech Chazara. TM is simply a mantra meditation, right? And it's called Derech Chazara in Kabbalah. And then you take certain words or certain terms, Rabbi Nachman, many other sages discuss it, or you take Shemus or Sirufim, and you go over and over again with certain letters or certain divine names. So these are, I would say, mindfulness and TM in a kosher version. I would say that they're part of the many tools from a spectrum of elevation of consciousness and mastery of consciousness, and the developing the revelation of the higher consciousness and allowing it to affect our lives and affect the world. And that's really the goal of meditation, which is to master the mind, to connect it to our higher self, and then to use that to live a higher life and to elevate the world through that. And then there's many of these standards, known in the West kind of meditations, which you see are fragments of the full skill set, of the full spectrum of what's really possible for human consciousness.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're saying that there's room for all of these things and that they all exist as it, and they're sourced there. But what we're going to do today, if I understood correctly, is a little bit beyond that or different than that.
I would like to do today an introduction to Dveikus. Can I talk for a few minutes about why I think this is important and relevant to the subject at hand of addiction?
Yeah.
To be overly simplify the challenge of the addict, and this is deeply oversimplified, and I just want to preempt by saying I am not offering what I'm saying today as a end game solution to all the addicts and all their problems, right? And we're not kidding ourselves to do this. I believe that this is the core of what the founders were pushing us towards, and I believe that this is the missing link to people having real radical breakthroughs. But it's a no-brainer that every individual is complex. It's a no-brainer that they need a whole system and a whole process and support, et cetera, et cetera. So a person that would extract this, I believe if a person extracted this and used this as the only tool in their healing process, it possibly would give a few individuals breakthroughs. But by and large, we need, whether it's the 12 steps, whether it's, whatever process you are on. So I'm not offering this as the be-all and end-all, though I think this is an unbelievably important foundational tool. According to Torah, a very simple understanding of consciousness is, well, there's thousands of states of human consciousness. There's primarily two states of human consciousness. And I don't know whether people here are into the Kabbalah side, whether they're into the Jewish side, and I'm not just assuming they are. There are some things that I'm saying right now that may appear to some people as dogma, and that's why I'm giving everyone permission, as if you need it from me, take it or leave it. But if I take off the black hat and I take off the religious side of me, from my own personal experience in meditation, from my own personal experience in Buddhist meditation, from my own personal experience in Sufi techniques, from my own personal experience in life amazing moments, I know these things not to be dogma, but for them to be a reality. So I'm asking everyone to just approach it from the point of view of objective experiences in human consciousness, which millions of people around the world would validate from their own experience. There are primarily two modes of consciousness. There is the higher consciousness, which is called the divine consciousness, and there is the limited human consciousness. The limited human consciousness is called Das Tachton, which is my normal self, my psychological self. The higher consciousness is called Das Elyon, which literally translates as the higher consciousness or the higher self. According to the Kabbalistic understandings of the story from the Bible of the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden is the word Eden means pleasure. It's the pleasure that you get from divine revelation. It's the pleasure that you get from seeing the unity of all things. The highest moment of every single one of our lives, if you rewind and review the highest moments, it's always a moment of sensing the unity of everything, how it all comes together, how the struggle results in the pleasure, of seeing the interconnectivity of everyone, of seeing how the pains and challenges in your life all make sense now, of getting that breakthrough, that moment in the movie where all the questions are suddenly answered in the end and revealed. right? So this is only a wisp, but only a taste of what it's like to be in a state of consciousness where all the reality, all the complexity, all the period, all the fragmentation falls away. It's called the Alma de Cheres, the world of freedom, because you finally see how it comes together and you are one with everything, right? So that is called Das Elyon. And the Garden of Eden, it was actually called the Garden of Pleasure because it was a place and, if you will, a state where the unified human consciousness called Adam and Rishon was in that state. But what he did is he partook of the Eitz Das Tov Ra, which is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And these are Kabbalistic code words, not to be reductionistic in Kabbalah as well, for the higher consciousness and then the lower normal human psychological consciousness. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is literally the tree of consciousness, which holds space for both connection consciousness and destructive consciousness. And we are born in a world where the primary definition of our consciousness, the primary schism, is in higher consciousness. I am not just aware of the unity of all things, but I only experience myself as connected to all things. And I don't experience myself as separate or divided or cut off. The fact that I'm on Facebook and someone's getting more likes than me, or someone posts something, they have a nicer car, a nicer job, a prettier wife, and I feel I don't have that because they do, right? All my suffering, all the idea of depression, all the idea of lust is that there's something outside of me that I desire, that I'm trying to consume and get towards me. And I will have pleasure when I get there. But all of that is reinforcing the delusion that those two things are separate from me right now. And all the idea of jealousy is the fact that I don't have that. And all the idea of pain, of loneliness, all the base level things is I am separate and fragmented off from the whole. Fear, the core fears that we have of abandonment, of rejection, of lack of self-worth. Nobody has low self-esteem issues when they're in Dveikus, when they're connected to the unity, because you are one with the perfection. So in Kabbalah, the primary shift that kick-started humanity in the worst sense was the disconnected self from source. And that is where we are born. That's where the hero finds him or herself in this world, in myself. And I want to become successful because now I'm not successful and I have to become that. And if I am that, then I will get worth or value. And until that, I have a low self-esteem and they have more than me. And I'm not fulfilled without that new iPhone. I'm not fulfilled without that car, that job, because I am beginning with a consciousness of lack, with a consciousness of Simsum. And I'm self-aware. I'm aware that I'm stuck here. I'm aware I'm successful or failing. I'm aware I'm caught in my issues. And my awareness actually crushes me further. I remember when I was 16 and 17, I had terrible I don't want to use depression when I'm around people suffering with addictions. It probably wasn't clinical depression, but it was a kind of dark period for me. Because I always felt I had a great depth and a desire to connect to people. And I always felt that I couldn't. I wasn't cool enough. I wasn't something enough. I was lacking, right? And I would go and hang out with friends and I'd want to say something and I'd try to connect and I couldn't get the connection. So A, I didn't get the connection. I felt frustrated. But B, I'm a very kind of self-aware person. So the self-awareness that I wasn't getting the connection made me start to get existential about my failure and realizing, wow, look how I can't connect and look how I'm failing at connection. And that would bring up deeper fear and deeper anxiety, right? And those anxieties would be self-aware and create more anxieties and that would create more fear. And I always used to call it going under. Going under means that we're not just crashing from our problems, we're crashing from our self-judgments, from our self-awareness about our problems, which creates for many people, which is the root cause of depression, of feelings of utter failure. So it's very, very key to know that our hero begins in a sense of I am separate from reality. I am cut off within myself. I am only as good as my external success. Is anyone relating in any way to what I'm saying? And therefore, the more within the lower self, the conscious self, the normal everyday self, okay? The psychological self, there's two spectrums. I can be emotionally healthy or I can be emotionally unhealthy. And I don't need to tell you all that there's a very massive, ocean of difference between healthy people, right, and unhealthy people. And let's put addiction, right, on the far end of the unhealthy. But I have to, here's the spoiler alert. You can be unbelievably healthy and intelligent and emotionally intelligent and together and successful and still be utterly disconnected from source. And that's an interesting thing. Relatively speaking, on the spectrum of Das Tachton, you're higher, but you're still fundamentally saying that I am successful, I am worked through. I don't want to attack anyone, but someone showed me this video of a guy called Tony Robbins. It's a guy here he is on stage, and he's so successful and handsome, and his goal is to stand in front of 5,000 people and tell them, I just flew on in a helicopter and I make $1 billion a year. And that he's like made an incredible impact in helping a lot of people. But it's an example of someone who's very together and healthy, but is still reinforcing to some degree the fact that he's not at one with everything. He still needs to know, needs you to know of his success. Again, I'm not attacking that. We're just talking about the model. And within that spectrum of healthy and unhealthy, we're still in Das Tachton. But all ultimate evolution of consciousness, the ultimate spiritual development, is the degree to which we begin to break down the illusion and delusion that myself actually operates in a separate level from the higher self and the higher source. And as I am unhealthy, we're all unhealthy in some way. I have fear, I have doubt, I have unbelievable trauma. I have, shocking addictions, which are embarrassing. Not just the addiction, as you were saying last week, it's the shame about the addiction, right? And the embarrassment about the shame and the feeling of how I'm messing up my life because I'm so shameful and so on. And all these levels are piling on. And it gets to a point where all healing on a basic level, all psychological transformation on a natural level is done by awakening the consciousness, the Das, to become aware of what the emotions and the body's carrying, the shame, the trauma, the fear, the lust, the jealousy, and to use the Das to work through the emotional blocks. And that's normal psychological, personal development. But what the founders of the 12 steps worked out is the same thing the Baal Shem Tov taught. It's the same thing that Shimon Bar Yochai and the Ariya Kadash and all of us sages knew. Is there's a get out of jail free card, which we all carry in the pockets of our heart. There's a supersonic express to healing, which is when you take your lower consciousness and you melt it away before the higher transcendent consciousness. Then what happens is it rapidly melts away all the illusions of fear, of shame, of abandonment, of lust, of ego, because all of that darkness in all its multiplicity, in all its complexity, in all the layer upon layers of all these issues, they all are confronted by the truth that you are not so shameful that you're unworthy, because you are absolutely worthy, because you're connected to the light of everything. You don't need to lust after something after you, because that is your way of seeking pleasure as a form of release. But the ultimate pleasure is when we connect to our source. You are not, have to have anything to be ashamed of, because yes, while you may have, strayed from home, this is your home, this is your source, this is yourself. And in that, how could I think I could never get back when I am now back and I was never gone at all? So the delusion rapidly falls away when it's exposed to what's called the world of truth, the world of emes. So,
is it an end in itself, as far as you're concerned, the meditative state, or is there another purpose beyond it?
Yes. So this is a classic discussion in Torah ideas. It is not an end in itself. It actually is the end game of humanity. But, what I believe, what you mentioned last week about the 12-step process, as we move towards the end of an individual's healing, then the next stage is about taking responsibility for other people's healing. So in Kabbalah, we are all called an Olam Katan. We are all a small world and a small universe. And we live in a big world and big universe. So our first responsibility is to heal ourselves. And the power of Dveikus, and then maintaining and living in that Dveikus, is the radical shift the Baal Shem Tov wanted to make accessible to everyone of how we can perfect ourselves. But once we are embodiers of that light, then our responsibility is not just do a tikkun olam, a fixing of the internal world, but then we now need to shift to bring that wisdom, to bring that light to all people with their challenges, to go a step beyond, not just help alcoholics with their alcoholism, right? Now we have to affect governments, we have to affect media, we have to affect global consciousness, we have to affect environment, we have to bring Torah and wisdom out. So it is the end goal, not just to access it as a state, but to integrate it as a way of being is the beginning of every individual's journey. But then to step beyond the self, to the family, to the community, to the whole, and because there's a part of us that can never be healed until the world is healed, because his kalas and kashas are all included as one. So that's part of it. And then the other thing I wanted to offer here is what the Baal Shem Tov says, and I think this is so key in healing addiction. Again, I am not an expert in this field. I've worked with individuals whatever way I can, and Ellie and other people all know much, much more than me. But I have zero doubt that this is a truth, what I'm going to say right now. The primary essence of overcoming addiction, like all forms of human suffering, is the realization that everything we seek out in the world can be found in a healthier, more deeper way already within us. And there's an idea which I call psychological immunity. Psychological immunity is really called hishtavus, it's called yeshiva das. Psychological immunity is the idea of why are some people more prone to becoming addicts than others? Right, and I think you're more sophisticated in these subjects. I think we're moving to a generation where it's not because heroin is so addictive that everybody that tries it instantly becomes an addict. We know many people have alcohol and don't become an addict. Unfortunately, many people see pornography and don't become to such a degree. I think the truth is more people than we acknowledge I do have an issue with it. I think that's kind of a no-brainer, thanks to the wonders of iPhones and modern technology. But I think not everyone ad kedei kach goes to such a degree. And the answer is there's a lacking of core psychological immunity. And psychological immunity on a basic level is something called das. That the more a person has a sense of self, a sense of the goodness of self, the light of self, the moral and ethics of self, the more they're not torrid, burdened, overwhelmed by fear, anxiety, pain, lack of self-esteem, guilt, trauma, right? That means when the body moves towards something, fear or anger or lust, right? Then they partake and the consciousness says, okay, that was nice, that was fun, that was good, that was pleasurable. And then they have meaning, they have focus, they have what's called the center point, the nakuda of consciousness, which is a self, which is the manhig, as Rabbi Nachman calls it. Manhig is that can guide and align the system and keep it together and focused. But when a person is at their core destabilized by anxiety, by stress, by trauma, by doubt, then they don't have a core self which is guiding the system. That takes down their psychological immunity, right? And puts them in a place of vulnerability. And they only need one thing to tip them over, and then it becomes an issue. Here's the key thing I'm trying to say.
May I offer an alternative?
Yes, let me hear it.
So, the one part of addiction for sure that I found just anecdotally is that everyone has a story in the rooms, right? Some sort of pain. But what's also not true is that everyone who has that story has an addiction, right? And we can separate, the word addiction is used in different terms, just in much the same way people use the term OCD or depression in different ways. We can be sad, we can be having a tough day, and then there's clinical depression where it's a different level. Same with OCD. There's OCD where I need the room clean, and there's OCD where every 5 minutes I'm going back home to make sure I've locked my door, right? There's different levels of OCD. And the same is true with addiction. While a lot of people have a phone addiction or sugar addiction or pornography addiction, the question is what happens if they work through that initial stage, right? Those 30 to 60 day period where anyone who takes sugar completely out of their diet is going to go through withdrawal. but only an addict will take sugar out of their diet for 20 years. And then when they have a bad day, their first thought is, let me go back there. So when we're talking about an addiction, we're talking about that psychological addiction that still sets in. They can be free from it. They can be free from it in a general capacity, but however high their immunity is, once the disease reaches above that level, then the very first thought will become, let me go back there. Versus someone who's just dealing with a physical addiction, they can pull it apart. However, in my own experience, I had someone call me about his son who was a porn addict. His son was in his 20s and his father was, his father, however much older. And he was very distraught about his son's addiction, like really distraught. And even a part of it felt disgusted when I was listening to him describe his son and his son's behavior. And he was a rabbi. He was a very, very well-respected person in the community. And I asked him, as he was talking, I asked him a question. I said, can you take me back for a moment to when your kid was a child? Tell me, was he your most sensitive child? Was he the one who was most other-centered? Was he the one who was most obstinate about justice?
Empathic to some degree. Right.
Justice, truth, right? Were those things so important to him? And that's what I found almost uniform with addicts. And Rabbi Shays Taub has a book called God of Our Understanding, where he says this amazingly is very often the addicts, you put 10 people in the same room, they experience the same thing. And then one is just so distraught over the experience. And then that pain is what they need to anesthetize. In the room, they talk about the God-shaped hole. We're trying to fill our God-shaped hole with alcohol, with pornography, with adrenaline, with whatever it is we can get inside us. But really it is a God-shaped hole. So what Reb Shays Taub says, he says, for the average person, spirituality is a luxury. And he used the word lightly, but meaning they can appear functional to the world without any level of spirituality, that spectrum of healthy versus unhealthy that you spoke about. But for an addict, spirituality is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Life or death. Life or death.
It's life or death. If they don't infuse spirituality into their practice, then, or we, as an addict, if that's not infused on a regular basis, then we become people we really don't like and people who are very, very dysfunctional to ourselves. So I see it in a way that what I've seen with addicts is you see the most beautiful, sensitive souls, which have the capacity to go in either direction.
So this is beautiful. Thank you for clarifying these things. There's 1,000 points I want to pick up on, but we both know we're not here for 2.5 hour discussion right now. So I want to come back and we'll spend 2.5 hours on what you just said. There's a lot of beautiful, insightful points there. I'm going to just take the end of it rather than the interesting points you spoke to along the way. This is exactly the point I want to speak to with the Vekas. This is exactly the point I want to speak to meditation. Chassidus 101, everything you're seeking in the external world needs to be generated from the internal world. That is the definition of psychological and spiritual mastery according to Chassidus, and ultimately from Torah. And what that means is these people are experiencing an existential devastation on the inside. And they are looking to fulfill that, to feel that God-sized hole, is that beautiful term, with something. And everything they are reaching to is called a klippa in Hasidic language of what they want. Sexuality is a klippa of bonding and intimate connection. Right? As we said, music, again, I'm not comparing it, some people, get into sex and drugs and alcohol. Drugs are a klippa, a fallen version of the spiritual experience, right? This idea of gambling, gambling, again, I'm not trying to oversimplify complex things, but going along the path, the idea that I can go from 0 to 100 in a simple moment, that opportunity becomes so compelling. They are desperately trying to get out of their das tachton and desperately trying to reach into the pleasure, the bliss, the unity of sexuality, the pleasure of the infinite connection, the breakthrough moment. And they're trying to destroy themselves and escape themselves, and all those things are klippas of Devekus. And Chassidus 101 says the following thing. If you want to eat, let's take a stupid level, right? I want the pleasure of sugar. I want the pleasure of the cake. Why do you want the pleasure of the cake? Because it's yummy, right? But you're probably not going to be destabilized to the nth degree in your life if it's just because it's yummy. But if you have that God-sized hole, the desire for the cake is the desire for pleasure. And the pleasure, Tana Gelaki, divine pleasure, even physical pleasure hints to divine pleasure, according to Kabbalah. And it's one step bigger than the vast wasteland that I live in a devastated state of my life. So I reach for that source of pleasure. I reach for the false flirt of pornography. I reach for all these kind of things. I reach for validation. I reach for approval. I reach for likes on Facebook. I reach for validation in the workplace of success because I'm trying to fill that thing within me. The Baal Shem Tov says, and many Hasidic texts say, and it's the core of Kabbalah, it goes like this. If when I reach for that thing, I question, what is it that I truly want from it? And a true addict may not even have that window of thought, right, between the desire and the reaching for the desire. And that window can be developed. To say, if what I want is pleasure, there's a greater pleasure in the world that I don't get pleasure from and then crash. I don't get pleasure from and then wish that I hadn't. And that is the pleasure by not going out, but going up, by not going beyond, but going within. And he says, when you confront fear, when you need covered validation, how many people in the world are going to give me honor now and also in 10 minutes and also when I make a mistake? No one. But Hashem, in the divine light, I feel infinitely valuable because I'm connecting to my infinite value. And therefore, that will boost my self-esteem and my release my vacuum of divinity because I'm injecting into me. I don't mean to be crude, but this is the language the Kabbalists use, or Shlomo Melech use, the Hasidic use. I'm becoming the woman receiving the divine light and finding that pleasure and finding that intimacy and escaping myself, my lower self, into the higher self there. And the Baal Shem Tov talks about this in prayer, as is Rabbi Nachman and all the Hasidic texts, Ma'or for sure. And this is the core idea. The desire of desires is to desire. You can't stop your heart from lusting. You can't stop your heart from fearing. You know, it's amazing. People have, most of people's fears is Rabbi Nachman. So most of people's psychological problems is Rabbi Nachman is because of fear. If we could overcome our fear, we'd be 90% of the thing there. Everyone's running away from fears. Every social media post is, a cute line about how to overcome fears. I've heard that there's a thing called horror movies, and people line up in lines and get $100 million at the opening weekend for a horror movie because people want to be scared out of their mind. How strange, Ellie, that everyone's trying to overcome fears, but we will literally pay money to be terrified. Why is that? Because the desire of desires is to desire. We want to feel our emotions. We feel alive when we feel. I want to lust. I want to get pleasure. In marriage, lust is a beautiful thing. It keeps you attracted. It keeps you glued. It keeps you interested and engaged with each other, right? So Torah, and especially Chassidus, said you will always lust. You will always fear. You will always have, you want power, you want honor. These are core parts of the 7 primary emotional traits. The Baal Shem Tov says, the only difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, between the addict and the God and the spiritual master, is not their lust. They both have lust and they both need lust. It's where do they seek to have their lust satiated through? Through somewhere in the gutter or through the infinite divine connection. And when our lust and desire and ego and fears come up, if we teach them in that moment to then find their pleasure and find their source in divine connection, then we rewire the neural networks. Then we rewire our conditioning, our habits of addiction. We're literally trading addiction for Olam Hazeh, for the physical world, into addiction for higher spiritual connection, which is what the Tzadikim had. The Rambam, Maimonides, says that love for Hashem means that you lust after Hashem like a man lusts after a woman. Isn't that a deep statement about addiction? Right? He's not saying, he's not very Hasidic, the Rambam, but apparently he was. He's not saying kill your lust. He's saying the desire of desires is desire. The lust wants to lust. But what you could do is you could teach it what to be pleasured from. And by the way, that makes lust powerful. It makes it a motivating force. So all addictions are based on desires, which are fragmented and sabotaging and, in tohu avohu, going in the wrong directions. And the reason they are so destructive is not because the lust itself is bad. It's just because it's running in the wrong. The word ratzon comes from the word run. Desire comes from the word to run. It's running in the wrong direction. And Torah's response is don't kill it, don't break it, don't shatter it, but don't repress it. God forbid, that's the worst. But through meditation, teach it to run to its source. And then the very force that is breaking you is the force that will now elevate you. And that's the essence of meditation, according to Kabbalah. And that's the transformational power of the higher breakthrough experience is at that moment, all our clippers is the mystical word. It says when the core emotion is there, lust, right? The core is there's lust, is the clipper is the one that the lust comes up and says, I want that pleasure and I want that connection. And then the clipper says, well, you'll find it on that website. You'll find it with that woman. You'll find it with that look and that place, right? And if you take off the clipper or you reprogram or recondition the clipper to say the best pleasure, the most highest bliss is divine connection, then you rechanneling. That's called halata midas. And there's 3 steps to that process. But you're now elevating the thing that destroyed you, and it itself becomes a power that connects you.
Okay, from an addiction standpoint, certainly sexual addiction and food addiction, right? The spectrum would be acting out and anorexia, right? So sexual anorexia would be a disorder. People go to, there are people who go to sex addict meetings and their identifying problem is sexual anorexia. And the same is true, we know it obviously with food, where food anorexia is a food disorder as well. So it makes a lot of sense.
So they're really destroying and repressing with other emotions to push down the midah, rather than saying the desire Hashem gave me those middas, but there's my self-destruction is not based because I have the desire, that I've mischanneled the desire because of the vacuum within me.
Yeah, or the cycle of addiction also has a binge and a purge, right? I wasn't just watching in the 12 steps, it says in the big book of AA, the 2 ways it recommends someone to know one of the ways to know whether someone has an addiction is, did you try to stop? The fact that someone tried to stop is a suggestion that like the binging and the purging.
So I'll give you a good way to say it. The binge and the purge is the definition of the Eitzadas Tovara, where the consciousness is going from one extreme to the other. Exactly. It's called in a polarizing state. The pleasure is also bad, the good of the pleasure and the bad of, the embarrassment, the shame, but there's no center, there's no grounding, there's no balance. It's just, I'm living in a reactionary state rather than a willful, conscious, mindful decision, which is the healed state, the elevated state.
Yeah, I think we should get to the meditation, but I wanted one point before, and then I think we get to the meditation. Sure. I was at a recovery retreat about a year ago, and this young guy, maybe 21 or 22, got up and read a poem that he wrote. And the refrain, I don't remember the whole poem, obviously, but the refrain through it was, he was talking about a heroin addiction. And he said, the first time I put that needle in my arm, I was aiming for you, I missed my mark. And the refrain throughout the course of the poem was, I was aiming for you, I missed my mark.
So deep, very, very profound. Yeah, it's very, very moving. It's an incredibly moving line. And all the secrets are in there, The question that interests me in my journey as a teacher, my journey as a seeker, is how do we take, the parable of the poem and turn it into practical, teachable, experience, the tools and technique, right? And then that's what interests us. That's what we're doing here, right? I'm interested to know, just like if you're watching online right now on Facebook or here, are you resonating? Give us, what's your takeaway so far? If you're here right now in the box, if you're watching on Facebook, click like or love and share with your friends so more people gain from this. I'd love to just see people share a little one-line takeaway. I will read them later and respond. I'd love to see how everyone's digesting what we're saying. Okay, where are we up to, Ellie?
I think we dive in.
So let's dive in.
About a meditation. Okay. We're closer to 2:00.
Right. So now I'm going to heal all the addicts in 30 minutes. You ready? I'm just going to click my fingers and there's no more problems in the world. Wasn't that awesome?
Yeah, we're going to put that out as an audio file only, and you're going to get.
I think Ryan's already captured that line.
Yeah, just an audio extraction, not seeing the smile.
There's a new poster of Doniel Katz with his hands up.
I promise
Awesome.
to heal all addicts in 10 minutes.
Right, or your money back.
Do you
How
need
much did they
20?
pay for this session? So let's step into. That's right. Your addiction back. That's not much of a promise, by the way.
I know.
It's probably more realistic. Let us do something short and sweet, okay? You know, we have whole programs where I teach consciousness and I teach Torah and explain how meditations work. I'm going to take the liberty, if you'll come with us on the journey right now, to not explain to you what I'm doing, but just to do it, okay? And basically what I'm going to do, here are the basic steps. I'm going to quieten your mind so there's less external distraction, number one. Number two, as I'm going to awaken positive, holy emotional states, so you become some kind of magnet for the highest states of your Das Elyon, for the emotions of the divine soul, the midas of the Nefesh Elokis. So I'm going to quieten your mind, okay, and quieten your body to take out some of the noise. It's called hashkata, silencing of the mind. Then we're going to, we want to get out of the Das Tachton, the lower consciousness. We're going to awaken positive emotional states, which have certain reference points to spiritual experiences or moments of connection in your life, which opens up our spiritual sensitivity. And then we're going to leverage everything we can to try and move into something higher beyond our conscious mind. We're going to use visualization and emotion to a degree, and then we're going to let go of visualization, emotion, and see if we can connect to something beyond that. I'm not trying to heal you right now. I'm not trying to help you overcome an addiction. Rule 101 in Elevation, the Elevation program, the project that we run, is, the biggest block to having a spiritual experience is your desire to have a spiritual experience. That's the drill that you have to know. Because I need to have a spiritual experience. I need to not be addicted. I need to overcome my blocks. That is ego. I'm such a failure. I'm so stuck. I'm so identifying with my destructiveness. I so desperately need to get out of it. The pain and the angst that you feel is further encasing and entrapping you within it. You understand what we're saying here? Great. So what we're trying to do right now is say, it doesn't matter. This is not going to help me. It's not going to cure me. I'm just playing Islamdus. I'm playing with consciousness, and I'm curious about what I can open to or what I can connect to. And that's the whole game we're playing right now. It's only going to take a few minutes. I'm not going to leave you to close your eyes and count the sheep or, see the clouds passing by. There's nothing so abstract. It's going to be focused and to the point. And to come on the journey, your mission, should you choose to accept it, I need you to commit to I don't want to be healed in this moment. I want you to decide that right now. I'm not looking for a desperate breakthrough. Fine. Good. I want you to decide that I'm willing to try something, even if it's unusual, in a playful, open, curious manner. Okay? Number 3 is, even if meditation never works for you, it doesn't matter. We're using something different here, something a little deeper here. And I want you to commit, I'm willing to try meditation again. I've come to the session. I've listened to the Rabbi and Ellie talk about all that crazy stuff. So I'm willing to just take it with a fresh mind. And
just in
number
case
4,
there's anyone on this call who doesn't identify as an addict, beyond my mom, because I know she's on the call. What will happen if someone's not an addict? Will they go up in the cloud of smoke?
I'm not dealing with addicts right now. That's exactly the point. Now I'm dealing with a few hundred human beings and showing them, I told you last week, Ellie, I don't like the line that I am Joe Smith and I'm an addict, because you're not an addict. And the line that I'm an addict, I'm not arguing, God forbid, with the masters of the 12 steps.
There's a lot of dogma there, and anyone who does, we lynch them.
Right, the religious people hate me, and the addicts will hate me. Great. So all I'm saying is that the essence of Chassidus is to realize you are not an addict. You're a divine soul, right? And every human being needs to get at that lower state of consciousness and tap into that higher divine state of consciousness. And that's where I want to take you. When we get there, that is called Shekhinah, the divine feminine presence. And in her light, she knows what we need. The healthy people, yeah, right. I've yet to meet a healthy person, okay? Everybody's dealing with something. Everyone's family is dealing with something. Everybody thinks that their thing they're dealing with is definitely the worst thing, okay? And when we get to that place, we can ask for the blessing, for the revelation, for the healing that we need, right? But I'm going to teach everyone the same technique that I teach to non-addicts, because we all need the same core. And I think that's a very profound statement, but I can't go into it now. So if you commit to all these commitments, the last thing I want you to do, I want you to sit up straight in your chair right now. Please make sure your phone is off. Please close down the web browsers in general and also now. And I would just want you to take 30 seconds. If you believe in meditation and prayer, if you're following 12 steps or you don't, I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to just trust me on this. Are you ready? I want you to tell Hashem right now, I don't need a spiritual experience. And I bet there's somebody in the group right now that needs it more than me. And Hashem, please help them have that experience right now. I want to surrender your need and give it to somebody else right now. Hashem, if he wants, could also give you the experience as well. I'm going to be quiet for 30 seconds. This is the only time I'll be mostly quiet. And I want you to commit right now to give it away with joy. And by the way, if you're so desperate, no, I need it too, fine, you can take it too. That's not a problem. But I want you to see if you can give it away and trust that you're so worthy of love, that you're so successful in your journey, even 1,000 times you failed, that really you could give to another right now, rather than desperately grab it with two hands for yourself. And that itself is healing, and that itself opens you to blessings. Take 30 seconds right now to open your heart, to speak to your source, to your higher self, to God, however you understand him. And I want you to ask that someone else in this group, on Facebook, on YouTube, in the Zoom room, that someone else and many others should get the blessing. Do that now. 20 seconds, go. Wonderful. I want you to keep your eyes closed right now and commit, if you can do this with a smile in your heart, to keeping your eyes closed for the whole 10, 15 minutes that we do this exercise. Whether you're sitting, whether you're standing or lying down, I want you to just choose to allow your body to relax. Don't demand your body relax, just choose. I want you to allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your shoulders to feel warm and relaxed. Just to melt away, loosen up and relax. Allow your arms to relax. Your arms, your wrists, your hands and fingers are just melting and relaxing. Melting and relaxing. Great. I want you to allow your torso, your chest and back, your stomach and lower back to relax. Everything just feels warm and relaxed. Choose that it will, and it will. Your hips and legs. Your legs are relaxing, your hips are relaxing. Warm and loose and relaxed. Your feet and your toes are melting away. Melting down, warm and relaxed. Your toes and feet are relaxed, your legs are relaxed, your torso, your arms and hands are relaxed, your shoulders are relaxed. Your neck is relaxing and loose and relaxed. Your head and jaw are relaxing. Your ears and temples are warm and relaxed. Your nose and eye sockets are warm and relaxed. From the top of your head to the bottom are relaxed. Keep your eyes closed. Maybe you're feeling more relaxed. Maybe you're not feeling more relaxed. I want you to know the meditation's going to work 100% either way. There's nothing you have to do right now to be worthy of the higher connection. You don't have to be more relaxed. You don't have to be more holy or more worthy. We're not entering into this experience because of our worth, because of our success. We're entering saying, I'm probably not worthy. I probably messed up 1,000 times. But even now, the truth of the light within is that it's there, is that it's strong, and that we are loved beyond our ability to comprehend, even now in this moment. I want you to right now choose to let go of everything that happened in your history. It is no longer relevant. If anything, it's made you hungry and hungrier for this moment. I want you just to choose to let it go. How can I just let it go? Just choose. I want you to choose right now to let go of everything in the future. All your expectations and needs. I'm not really saying they're gone, but I just want you to make a little choice in your mind. I let it go right now. I want you to choose right now to let go of all your responsibility in the present tense moment. Family, friends, problems, issues, solutions, work, home, past, present, and future. I want you to choose just to be you. Let the world melt away like wax, till there's just you right now, right here. And it's just us right now and right here. We're about to do something weird with you. It's just a game. Let's play it together with an open mind and heart. The Kabbalist teaches of a mechanism of consciousness called his kashrus, to bind our minds with others and create new channels of connection, of love, of opening. I want you to realize that there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people doing this meditation right now live or watching in future. There's many people right now all around the world doing this. And they're here right now in this moment like you are because they're searching, because they're hoping, because they're yearning, and primarily because their divine soul is strong within them. So let's not do this alone. Let's not think it's just me trying to have a breakthrough. Let's unite in the collective light, the light of our other's divinity. On the count of 3, I'm going to count to 3. I want you to choose and believe that your soul is connected to the soul of everybody else joining us for this meditation right now, wherever they are on their journey and in the world. We're going to choose and believe that our souls are one, that we are one soul with one purpose. And at that moment, I will share my light with them, and I will receive an influx and blessing of all their light to me. And that will bounce back and forward as a kind of reciprocal current to empower all of us. So we're going to do it right now. Are you ready? On the count of 3. Simply choose and believe that we are connected together. I choose it and I believe that it's true. And let Hashem put the chords together and work his magic. 1, 2, 3. Choose and believe it. Go. Great. Now I'm going to count to 5. And when I get to 5, I want you to choose and believe that that connection is even stronger. I want you to open up your palms of your hands in a receptive mode, to shine the light of your soul to them and the light of their soul to you. I'm going to count to 5. As I count to 5, we're just turning up the volume on the connection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whether you believe in Hashem or not, he's still there. He's still there in infinite light. On the count of 3, I just want you to choose and believe that your consciousness, your soul, is now connected to its source. And now you're open to a divine influx. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to count to 3 again. I want you to choose to strengthen that light and that energy. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to count to 3 again. I want you to choose that Hashem's light will pour into the collective consciousness of this whole group right now, flooding each of us with the light and blessing we need Don't think about this. Don't rationalize this. You don't need to understand this. Just choose it and believe that it's true. Hashem's infinite light floods into the collective vessel, kli, of this group and blesses us all. If it helps you to visualize, see a light coming down and pouring into the collective souls and hearts of this group. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Choose to strengthen it even more on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Right now, I want you to think of a moment in your life where you felt loved. A memory of a moment in your life where you felt love in general, love from another or love towards another, when your heart felt full of love. If you don't have one, ask Hashem to reveal one to you. I'll give you a couple seconds to find a memory of deep feeling of love. Wonderful. Right now, I want you to watch it like a short movie, a short video clip. I want you to go to the exact scene, the exact moment when it was at its pinnacle. I want you to tell yourself the story. I want you to watch it like you're watching a movie. I want you to be conscious of adding color, sound, smell, all the senses, details. I want you to tell the little clip in a few seconds from beginning to end. Do that now. Watch it, experience it, the moment of tremendous love to another or from another. When you get to the end, I want you to go back to the beginning and watch it again. Each time add color, add details, allow yourself to feel it in all its depth and glory. Then go back to the beginning and watch it again. Wonderful. I want you to choose right now a memory, a time in your life when you felt holiness or transcendence. Holiness or transcendence. It may have been a moment in a deep meditation. It may be in a holy time of the year, a holy place in the year. Something magical, spiritual, transcendent. You sense the unity in all things. Remember that idea, then rewind and play it, then rewind and play it. Do that right now. Add details, colors. Experience it right now. Wonderful. Number 3, I want you to choose a memory, a moment in your life when you felt tremendous awe. Yira ila'a, tremendous, like you were outside in a desert and there were 100 billion stars. Something spectacular in nature where you felt truly humbled, truly small in a powerful, beautiful way of how magnificent creation was. Something amazing that happened to you that you can't believe it happened, where your mind boggled and you were in awe of it. Choose that memory right now. Watch it like a movie. Rewind and play. Colors, details, sights, sound. Fill in the details. Rewind and play. Feel humbled in that moment. I want you to go back now to the first memory of love. Rewind and play it, rewind and play it. Experience it again. Ahava. Do that now. Awaken that ahava, awaken that love. I want you to go to the second memory right now of Kedusha, of transcendence, of holiness. Rewind and play, awaken that right now. Maybe remember another moment where you felt holiness and transcendence. Bring that in right now and add it in details and technicolor, surround sound. Now go back to awe, to fear, to humility before something extraordinary. Rewind and play. Now go back to love. Ahava Rabba, love now. Do it again. Now go back to holiness, Kedusha. Do it again. Now go back to awe, Yira. Do it again. Back to love, holiness, awe, love, holiness, awe. As you go round and round, keep doing that yourself, round and round. I want you to begin to see that these are not separate sensations. They're all truly different dimensions of divinity. I want you to begin to tune in as you cycle round and round to the love within holiness, to the holiness within love, to the holiness of awe and fear, and the awe and holiness, to the love in awe and the awe in love. And I want you to begin to realize the truth of these three moments. Each of these was a gift, a conspiracy set up by Hashem to reveal to you a taste of His love, a taste of His holiness, a taste of His awe. Each one is an infinitesimally small sample so that you will yearn for a greater love, a greater holiness, a greater awe. And I want you to begin to see that the whole situation of each of these situations was set up by Hashem. And now as you go through each one, I want you to see the reality of them just melting away, of love, illuminated so much that it melts away and you just fall back into infinite divine love. And then go to Kedusha and see that scene in the time and all the physicality of it. It just becomes so illuminated that it just melts away, and suddenly in the reality of holiness, which is at one with that reality of love, and so too with fear, all the stars melt away. It was Hashem kissing you with awe. And see all of them forming as a light above your head, a keter, a crown, of the unity of love, of awe, of holiness. And allow your body and your head just to fall back into that awareness. And I'm going to say to you right now the divine name that embodies all of them, whether you know these name, whether you know these letters or not, just choose and believe you're connected to the ultimate highest light of this name. And trust and let the light come to you through your belief alone. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. Yud, Hey, and Vav and Hey. If you know what the letters look like easily, you can imagine them filled with the light of love and awe of holiness. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And let your body relax and fall away, and your history relax and fall away, and your expectations of the future relax and fall away, and your needs of the moment relax and fall away. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And now it's Kashrus again. I want you to choose and believe on the count of three. We are all connected as one heart and soul. Ish echad b'lev echad. If you don't know what that means, your soul does. On the count of three, I want you to shine the lights that you're radiating now to everybody else in this group, in the present moment, and those watching it in future. And I want you to receive from all of them right now the lights, back and forward. Give it and receive it and shine it back. Choose and believe it. We're all connected. 1, 2, 3. We're going to strengthen it right now. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to count up a ladder from 1 to 10, and we're going to ask Hashem to turn up the lights. the Kedusha for the whole of the group. Every time I go up a number, Hashem himself is just going to illuminate us more and more. There's nothing you need to do but ask and trust. Just gets brighter and brighter. Here we go. 1, Malchus. 2, Yesod. 3, Hoid. 4, Netzach. 5, Teferes. 6, Gevurah. 7, Chesed. 8, Bina. 9, Chochmah. 10, Keter. The light of the crown is activated within every single one of us. Fall back into it. I'm going to teach you a mantra right now. Just say it in your own mind and connect to the ideas. Rabbono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, source of all reality, who's creating us right now. You are creating me right now. My body, my heart, this light. You willfully want me in existence right now because you love me and believe in me. You are giving me life right now, pouring consciousness and energy into me. And therefore I choose right now to bind with you, to connect with you, to draw only from you, all my needs from you, all my desires from you. And I choose right now to disconnect from everybody else and everything else in the world. So let them go. Hashem, God, as I understand it, source of all reality, beyond all reality. You are creating all of reality right now and me right now. Every cell in my body, all my DNA is being consciously, willfully generated independently in every moment right now. And now, and now. You're giving me life right now. Giving me energy and life force right now. With so much love. And therefore I'm choosing right now to disconnect from everything else and to only draw from you, only desire you, only connect to you, and to disconnect from all my other needs in the world, all my other expectations in the world. I willfully let them go. I release them. I no longer embrace them. And I turn back to Source. Rabbono Shel Olam, Master of the world, source of all of creation reality that transcends Yud Hey Vav Hey, outside space and time. You are creating us all right now with love because you believe in us. You're giving us life right now because you know we have strength and courage to choose life on the highest level, to live life on the highest level, no matter what we've been through, to step into light and life on the highest level. And therefore I choose on every level, physically, genetically, emotionally, intellectually, belief, spiritually, supernaturally, energetically, historically, to only connect to you, to only draw from you, and to disconnect from my history, from my trauma, from my addiction, from my lust, from my doubt, from my envy, from my anxiety. You can do it. Recreate me right now. I want everybody to choose one great spiritual master, a tzaddik, from the Torah, from Jewish history, that we're going to ask for help and support in our process through Schus Avos. Every Kabbalistic and Hasidic text discusses this in depth. Trust me, this is halachically fine. It could be Rabbi Nachman, the Baal Shem Tov, Lubavitcher Rebbe, Shimon Bar Yochai, the Ari HaKadosh, Maharal, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Esther, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, whoever you want. Choose one right now. I want you to just say their names either in Hebrew or in English. Visualize the letters right now. I want you to think of one thing you love about their story, one energy or character trait they had, something that inspires you, something that you yearn towards, something that for a reason you don't even understand, you just sense a resonance with right now. On the count of 3, I want you to choose and believe that they're here with you right now. As Kashrus, the Tzadikim. And ask for them to be present, to ask for your soul to go be with them wherever they are in their life right now. Only Tzadikim, only known Tzadikim. Here we go on the count of 3. Choose and believe you're connected to them right now. 1, 2, 3. Strengthen it right now. Choose and believe we're open to their presence right now. 1, 2, 3. If you sense their presence, if you sense light, I want you to ask them for a blessing, ask them for an insight, ask them to pray for you. You can ask and imagine they're putting their hand on your head to give you a blessing. If there's something you want their help with, remember that Tzadikim, the only power they have is the power of Hashem. But because they're in a higher spiritual place, they're able to pray for us, they're able to be channels of light for us. Right now, I want you to ask them for any blessing, any guidance, any insight. Take a moment to interact with them, ask them a question. If you get a response you understand, say thank you. If you don't, ask for clarification. Take a moment for that interaction right now. Ask them also to give a blessing to everybody in this group right now. For them to share the guidance with everyone in this group right now, to support everyone in this group right now. All the hundreds and hundreds of people here. If there's anything you need to know about how to get the breakthrough you're yearning for, ask them for any insights, any technique, any process, and wait to hear a response. If you don't get a response, Hashem still loves you, it's okay. One final step before we end. I want you to let everything else dissipate. I want you to imagine there's a ladder in front of you with 10 steps up to the Or Ein Sof, up to the infinite light. And you're going to step up the ladder rung by rung. And at the top of the ladder is the infinite light, the infinite peace, the infinite connection, the infinite pleasure. And the bottom of the ladder is where you are now. And you're going to step up rung by rung, and you're going to count each rung 3 times. 1, 1, 1. And you're going to move to the second rung, 2, 2, 2, all the way to the top. And the higher you get, you're going to shift up and release any trauma, any addiction, any pain, any doubt. You're asking Hashem to release it from you so you can climb higher and higher. And all you have to do, if you step on a rung and Hashem puts something in your mind, I just want you to do tshuva on it. Yes, that's an issue. I acknowledge that's an issue. I regret it and I never want to do it again. And Hashem, you can release me from it now. I want you to imagine tremendous light and blessing and love pours down from Hashem until you can just step onto the next rung. Don't get caught in anything. Just do it smiling and dancing. Hashem is drawing you in like a tractor beam to your source. Begin to climb the ladder higher and higher now. higher and higher. Higher and higher. If you can't release something, just throw it off the ladder and ask Hashem to release it for you. And trust with all your heart, He can and He will. Know that He can and He will. And then keep going. Don't get stuck in the process. Higher and higher. More light, more love, more unity, more connection. More light, more love, more unity, more connection. Yud Kametz, Hey Kametz, Vav Kametz, and Hey Kametz. Yud Kametz, Hey Kametz, Vav Kametz, and Hey Kametz. Yud Patach, Hey Patach, Vav Patach, and Hey Patach. Higher and higher, keep going. Yud Patach, Hey Patach, Vav Patach, and Hey Patach. Yud Tseve, Hey Tseve, Vav Tseve, and Hey Tseve. Yud Tseve, Hey Tseve, Vav Tseve. Yud Chalem, Hey Chalem, Vav Chalem, and Hey Chalem. Yud Chalem, Hey Chalem, Vav Chalem, and Hey Chalem. Higher and higher till you're one with the light. Yud Hey, Vav, Hey. Yud Hey, and Vav Hey. When you get to the top, you're going to have 1 minute there for your own personal dialogue with Hashem. You can say whatever you most need to say, ask for help with whatever you most need to ask for help with, ask for clarity or insight or guidance, or just say thank you to Hashem for the light, for the blessing. 1 minute for your own personal prayer now. Throw off everything you don't need. Let it fall below. It's the infinity below, and it's gone and goodbye. You're free now. My name's John, and I'm a divine being. This is the true me. I am home. There's nothing you can't release here. There's no darkness greater than this light. You're accepted. You can be authentic here. Coming back down from 10 to 1. When we get to 1, we finish the meditation, but this state now comes down into you. This is the true you, comes into the mind and shifts and heals and releases the beliefs, into the heart and shifts and releases and heals the emotions, into the body, into the genes, into the neural networks, shifts and releases and orders and heals them. You don't have to do anything. Just smile because Hashem can do that. And trust that He is. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When you're ready and number 4, you're welcome to take a few deep breaths and open your eyes. No rush. Thank you. Okay, we're back here. Hey, Ellie's back here.
Made it back.
I,
I landed.
I would like everyone to share one line in the box of what that was like for you. Ozzy says that was a mind-boggling experience. Hadassah says, amazing, exclamation mark. Judy, thank you. Jason says, thank you, bravo, very beautiful. I can't read the names. Thank you. Oh my God, awesome. A wonderful dichotomy between peace and ecstatic joy, pleasure, connected, Baruch Hashem. Needed that, believing, landed. Thank you, connection. Wow, awesome, amazing, wonderful, feeling, healing, unbelievable, wow, hard, wow. I can't read them. The serenity going fast. How are you doing there, Ellie?
Good. I feel like I landed. That was me. That road landed.
That was that bump. If you're on Facebook, please write what that was like for you. A few sentences, I'm going to get to them. Well, these are going tears, mesmerizing, incredible, amazing, transcendent, cynicism melting away. Well, that's just the highest and most healing. What was that like for you, Ellie?
What was it like for me? What was, I think the portion that kind of took me there was where you were going through the different emotions of love, fear, and holiness, right? Like, and at a certain point in time, I had an image for each, but then as just before you said that they're all connected, I was like, wow, I have an experience where I kind of feel all three. So
boom. That opens us up to a deeper
right. Then you
place.
said that, and I don't know, it was something about that like those emotions that kind of.
Right. So you see how a little, I mean, people are getting mind-blowing tears, all these things. Wow. Do people sense a little that at some point, you know, at the beginning, I'm in my mind and I'm in my thoughts, right? And I'm using imagination and it feels nice. But many people, give me a yes or no, people, if you felt that there's a moment where you got out of yourself, you weren't just imagining or questioning or seeing it tzaddik, or there was a moment when you were suddenly beyond and you were suddenly gone, yes, 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 out of self, yes, yes, yes. And at that moment you were bonded. Wow, look at that, it's coming out of this world for sure, absolutely. So that's the source, the Baal Shem Tov would say, that we're chasing addiction, that we're chasing with lust. It's the infinite pleasure, the infinite connection, and my anxiety and my low self-esteem, right? Now, let's plug it into that. That's the first three steps, but it happens at an even higher level. That's possible. That was just an entry-level introduction. But if you maintain this every day, it absolutely radically shifts the imbalance of consciousness to desire and puts your consciousness and your light back in the driver's seat. And then over time, it whittles down and releases negativity. Now, I'm not claiming that, you know, people are no longer addicts, but I can tell you as a fact, having taught thousands of people these techniques around the world, there are literally people like the founders of AA who, when they do that meditation, I've seen them, they literally in a moment do change. And while that's not your goal, it speaks to the power of the higher self to relinquish the suffering and release of the lower self, so to speak. And that's the core, and it's innate, and it's within you. And you can literally train that every time the lust comes up, if you go to that state and rechannel it, and there's a specific technique to do that, then you slowly recondition, reprogram, rewire. Your lust for porn literally becomes a lust for the highest connection. And the Tzadikim say, Elliot, it should be said, you know, when we're discussing these things, that some Tzadikim became Tzadikim because they had such a powerful lust within them. That it actually was that force towards destructive lust when we channeled, that the same energy drove them to great spiritual heights. And I wonder whether what you said before about these are, I can't vouch statistically if it's accurate, but I totally resonate the idea that these are people that are more spiritually sensitive, they're more spiritually hungry, right? It's that desperate seeking, which if we channeled would actually take them into being, you know, extremely high and elevated spiritual masters and potential teachers. And I believe That's one of the things that interests me in doing these sessions with you and reaching out, that these are people that have greater spiritual potential, and the very thing that's destroying them is the channel. If you know anything about the middle of Yesod, Sadiq Yesod Elam, it's a little Kabbalistic, but the definition of a tzaddik is he's called Yesod, and Yesod is the sexual organ. So he becomes a channel of energy like the sexual organ, because he rechannels the connective organ of Yesod to divine connection. And therefore, the greater the lust, the greater capacity for divine connection. That's a pretty deep thing. That's the Yosef Ascetic, but that's a little out of the realm of what we're doing tonight.
One of the things that came up when there was something you said, to release all responsibilities, right, for a second. So in that state, right, you almost has to go to a place that I don't identify with being a father or a business owner or all of those things. So at that level, the same way I'm not identifying with being a father, I'm not identifying with being a business person, I'm also not identifying with being an addict, meaning there's room for both. It's not a
it's an oscillation. It's an oscillation. A mother needs self-care time to not be a mother so she can return to be a better mother, right? She needs to be able to step out of that role that she's playing back to the self. So that's not like, it's not irresponsible to say I'm stepping away responsibility. Sometimes psychological health demands you take a holiday, you take a break, you enter into that meditative state. That's why Jews step out of work and step into mincha. And our sages actually teach us that the greater miracles come in the middle of the day when you step out of work, the harder it is, right? So it's not irresponsible to remove yourself of responsibility, because the point is to reconnect, to come back clear and more powerful into your responsibility with das, with strength,
I'll find out when I turn off the meditation that the sales team was on fire while I was gone.
Yeah, you let me know whether the stocks go through the roof. I'm going to buy shares in you. This could be considered inside trading, but we're willing to test it out. That's fine.
It's not. It's recorded. It's on Facebook. It's on everywhere else. There's no insider.
Oh wow, we gave it all away. Fine. It's not insider when it's on the outside, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Great. So there's so many comments. Mind-blowing sense of profound power to heal the world through the complete physical shutdown. I mean, you see the response. It's very profound to see what's happening here.
So there was a lot of visualization in what we did compared to a lot of the other meditations that I've done. Never mind the fact that you brought in a lot of Kabbalah and the terminology and hiskashras and those things. But one of the differences I noticed was that going directly towards visualization.
So what we didn't do is any mindfulness. And what we did do at the beginning was a lot of visualization. And there's a secret about visualization. Visualization that ends with visualization. Well, I felt happy because I imagined happy things, and I felt holy because I imagined holy things. That is not at all the end game. But the Kabbalists use visualization, including Hebrew names and Sirufim, the permutations of Hebrew names and letters. And they use seeing, we imagine when we go to pray, seeing the Temple Mount, facing the Holy of Holies. There's a very deep secret in Kabbalah that what we visualize with our mind tells our soul what energetically to focus on and connect to. So visualization that creates emotions is not so interesting from a Torah perspective. That's not a spiritual experience. That's an emotional experience. But if for example, the law of attraction, which is called the Koyach HaMoshech, by visualizing what you want, it's not a visualization activity. It's actually telling your mind to tune into it. I want to ask a yes or no from everyone in the group right now. When you visualize and chose to connect to the energy of everyone in the group, did you feel an influx of energy, influx of expansion? Everyone give me a yes or no right now. Watch this. I already know the answer. I've done this 1,000 times. Yes, 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 yes. Bravo, amazing. Yes, 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 yes. So you see that? So that's not because of visualization, okay? If I can visualize connecting to you and not getting flooded, because we told to visualize and choose and believe, that means just believe it, choose it, don't think about it, then the visualization is cueing your supernatural consciousness to go and create an energetic matrix to bind with all those things. So visualization is used as a very rapid way to get us above visualization, above the rational intellectual consciousness when it's used well. It's kind of amazing to see what everyone's doing here. So there are other ways to get beyond visualization, but visualization is a very fast way to get there. That's the irony of it.
And then towards the end, what you were doing there was actually asking us to bring up specific things that are coming up in our life.
Yes or no? When I ask people to bring up specific things that come up in your life, did anybody feel a massive shift or release or something like that happen, big or small? Did people suddenly have visuals of energy shifts, or it came up to you? Let me see. Here we go. So there is a real-time, profound psychological shift that you can create from that. And that's basically, it's I want you to think deeply, Ellie, about the first three of the three steps. Okay? You're literally, that line of acknowledging there's a Shem, of saying I'm helpless, bittul and yira, of connecting to the divine light, and then throwing what you have into them, is absolutely a technique of consciousness, more than a thing to do. Yes, you have to be on the ground, you're crying, you're saying, it's also a thing that you do, just in desperation, but it's also a technique that you do in real time, that you get, look, yes, great experience with tears, felt lighter, not just physically. It's you begin to literally release it and throw it off. It's radical transformational therapy is what it is. And it does have a long-term effect.
Interesting. Yeah, what came up for me there was often I'll like stay in a passive energy, and then when I'm out of it, I go into a very aggressive fighting energy. Meaning I'll take a lot of, like, just in my life, right? I'll take a lot of negativity from people up to a point, and then I go into an aggressive fighting mode. And that was what was coming up for me, was that, like, that shift doesn't have to go from the way I termed it, lack of self-respect, lack of self-respect to fighting. Like, there's a way to maintain self-respect without a fighting energy.
What is the core of it that triggers the aggression? What's coming up? Let me tell you a secret in elevation. Aggression is always a way, anger or aggression is always a way where I protect myself from another core feeling. And creating distance and pushing back to protect something in here. So people always say they have an anger issue, but it's not really the anger. The anger is a light on the game wall of defense to protect this thing. Do you know what's underneath the anger that you're
feeling disrespected?
Disrespected, so covered, right? Fine. And probably disrespected has something else behind it, like a feeling of vulnerability or a feeling of used, hurt, right? Yeah. So used as a manly way of saying when you feel used, you feel taken advantage of, disrespected, that there's even a third step. So what you can learn to do is you can throw the anger or disrespect or feeling of used into the light and get a transformational relief. But if you want the impact to be deeper, more radical, more profound, you try and find the root, the shorish midah, right, that's behind all of them. It could be that, if I'm disrespected, I get taken advantage of, and then I end up being hurt and feeling rejected. And that's the thing there. So the faster you can take the light, the deeper you can take the light into your heart with that authenticity and vulnerability by stripping off the layers, then the more radical a shift you can generate for yourself. Why people often take a long time to heal is because they're using the light or using the healing to take off the secondaries, all these other emotions, but still haven't identified what's at the core. Rabbi Nachman says that you have to speak words of truth, authenticity in his bodhidus. When you're before the light and the revelation, then the more you can be real with your heart, you can strip away the kind of the archaeological dig of the heart to find what's the real core thing. And when you hit that, then you can really do massive shifts in a short period.
You have to name it.
Yeah, you have to name it. You have to see it. You have to feel it, right? But there's a
Yochevet's listening carefully.
What's that?
I said Yochevet is listening carefully. I know it's...
you have to, so naming something like Adam Rishon, right? Naming something like Adam Rishon named the animals is not just naming it. It means connecting your consciousness to its essence and drawing it out, which is calling of a name. That's what that's about.
We spoke about that a little bit last week when we were talking about abuse, right? That we're talking about sexual abuse, that could be a layer that's on top of something else that's deeper, a sense of abandonment or a sense of...
For sure. The sexual abuse is not the most intense part of sexual abuse. And these are very painful subjects to understand, but yeah.
Right, so being able to name that. Interesting.
Is this interesting for you, Ellie?
Yeah, for me, I do a fair amount of meditation. I've used a lot of different techniques, a lot of breathing in meditation specifically, a lot of mindfulness, but oftentimes music, right? The sound healing stuff. So when I see something, I'll usually try and attend. And then, but this is, I guess, a little bit different when I feel like I'm able to let go a little bit more when there's the Jewish aspects there. It's like permission to release just a little bit more. Just knowing that some of it comes from places that I may not be as comfortable with, or sources that I may not be as comfortable with if I knew, but maybe it's a subconscious or unconscious. I have no idea what it is, but this allows me to, I feel, go a little bit deeper and to really release into it without that little voice in the back of the head that says, how do you know the
Right.
energy behind this?
Behind that, totally. I totally hear that as well. It was definitely a existential release for me to, find this so richly in our own tradition.
Right. I mean, for me, I think I mentioned that last week, is finding that unity between the truth that I found in recovery. And I like that you say that it's not, you're not looking for godliness or religion or anything, just objective truth, right? This is, right? You don't have to believe it for it to exist.
If Torah and Kabbalah aren't teaching us objective reality, then they're just teaching us dogma or perspective, which is nice, and I may like that culturally. But Kabbalah is called the wisdom of truth. It's telling you the objective reality, and that's where it gets. That's why I think with the Elevation Project, if we could deliver people the ultimate map of truth of consciousness, then that has objective scientific value. It has objective value to humanity. Do you know what I mean? If it's true, then the value is objective, and it's a science of consciousness, a science of the mind. So that's the part that interests me. Otherwise, it's just a belief and a religion, a perspective, and there's lots of them.
Finding that truth sourced in Judaism, I've always enjoyed. When you asked to bring up a tzaddik, the one that I brought up was the Ari, not because I know him that well, but because there's a prayer that he recommended saying before Krishma, right? Which to me sounded like a 10th step of getting rid of resentments. So I was like, oh, wow, and that as a daily practice of getting rid of resentment. So every night I say that prayer, and I don't daven that much in the books.
Mm-hmm.
I pray, I put on tefillin every day and things like that, but I don't go into, I have a very difficult time reading prayers by rote at length, but a few of them I find a lot of meaning in, that one specifically. So for me, this has been, I said this on the very first time I brought up anything about Jewish spirituality and addiction, is that this is much more of a search that I'm on, that I'm inviting people into, versus I found something and here, I searched, I found, here's a light, versus, hey, I'm searching, and why don't you let me turn on the video camera while I'm searching?
I think that's part of the power of what you speak to. Do you know what I mean? There's an authenticity with that, and there's a questioning nature and a curiosity. And I think, that's more attractive and even more novel in our generation, and is a beautiful thing of what you do. On that point of what you mentioned, I'd love to hear from everyone in the group. Which tzaddik, which spiritual master did you choose? Maybe you could share. And did you feel a blessing or get clarity or get insight from them or get some kind of download energetically or an idea or very specific? I thought that person said Rabbi Eli. Wow, I chose you. That's very beautiful. Moshe, Ramchal, Yosef, and Tzaddik. They really believe in you, Eli. That's a very high level. Baal Shem Tov, King David. No one chose me. Shimon Bar Yochai, Shem Tov. Wow. So look, people said, yes, they got, did you get a download? Did you get insight? Did you get blessing? Did you get specific guidance? Did you get a healing? Did you get a tikkun? Give me a yes or no on that. It's fascinating. Look at all the yeses. It's absolutely fascinating process. Are you surprised by this stuff, Ellie? Have you seen people respond?
I've joined one of your other meditations, like right at the beginning. I almost don't want to say the word because we've gone 2 hours without saying it. But right at the beginning of the coronavirus.
Oh, wow. Wow. What's the coronavirus again? That's so like 2 hours ago.
Right. So right at the early on, like within the first week, I think you led a meditation and Yocheved shared it with me, and I jumped on that one. So I saw some of this, but I quieted myself a lot better in this one than in the last one. I didn't lock a door, and it was the middle of the day as well. But this one, I feel like I centered myself. I followed your instructions of keeping your eyes closed throughout.
That's very courageous of you.
But I did see that. I did notice that last time, the comments that people.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating what it does. Okay, wonderful. Are we doing questions or are we done now? What happens next?
Whatever. You told me the sales team is doing okay, so.
How would you tell? You want to check in?
I know
You're going to
there
find
are
out.
times where there are times where you've checked in with someone individually. I don't know if someone wants to do that and throw in their camera, and I always find those very interesting.
If people have, I don't know if Ryan, we have the ability to do that, to bring people up on the screen. Does anyone have a
you do.
question?
You would have to, if someone raised their hand, for example, or you can make me a co-host because I'm not right
We
now.
we are in a system that I don't actually use. I don't actually use the webinar to bring people up. I'm happy to make you a co-host. Can I trust you? Participants.
If there's a name.
Ellie, here I go. I'm making you a co-host.
Okay, so.
I want to know if Ryan meditated too.
Is Ryan, I asked him before.
Ryan, did you meditate? Were you closing your eyes? Does Ryan speak publicly or only?
So there are a few people who have their hands raised. Should I assume that if someone has their hand raised?
Try it. Let's see what happens. We're open-minded Jews.
Okay, the first one. There. We have someone on. Yaakov.
Turn on your... And now he's not.
He's
he
there.
Disappeared.
No,
he's back. Yaakov, turn on your camera and your mic. If you're on Facebook, please like or love this post and share it with your friends. And please comment in the box and let me know what the experience was like for you. I'd love to learn more. Yaakov, are you there? So put up your hand if you know how to turn on your video and audio. Let's start with that.
I think that it's probably us that needs to do something to allow him.
I think he could probably do it. I can unmute that myself. I think it's his end. I think you've done what you can do, Ellie. Now you have to let go.
Right. We're going to bring up someone else.
Here's Janie. She knows what to do. She knows the game. Janie's mic is on. Say hi, Janie.
Hi. Shalom, Kavod Arav.
Shalom to you. Do you want to turn on your camera? It's a visual medium.
Oh, I don't know where it is. I'm not quite sure. I'm calling from Israel.
It's probably a calling number. She's probably not using Zoom.
No, I think she is, but go on.
Yes, I had the most incredible healing experience with a brother.
She'll come back. Don't
worry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. You had the most incredible healing experience with?
With a brother that I had a shift in perception about a brother that I hadn't been in contact with because I was in fear of his disapproval ever since childhood. It's a taproot that I couldn't get rid of. And I saw him in the visualization with my mother over Sholem, with my mother and us sitting together. When you spoke about visualize when you were a child, you said to somebody, visualize when you were happy. Well, no, you said to the father, how was your child when he was young? And
right.
That was, I was the wayward, addictive child. And I was searching to fill up that God-shaped hole. And all of a sudden, I had this shift in perception about my brother, who I love so dearly that I don't dare face up to him. And I had a shift in perception that he's longing for me to contact him. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Jenny, for sharing that with us. Ellie, just to let you know that there's two kinds of visualization. There's the visualization from the Das Tachton and visualization from the Das Elyon. There's the visualization I do because I want to imagine something. Oh, there's a video of Janie. Now she comes up. Good to see you, Janie. And then Ellie, there's the visualization when a person, has hallucinogenics and they get actual downloads from their higher self, or prophecy itself is they see, but it's not being generated by the conscious mind. It's being generated by the soul and the higher. So that's part of what Janie's talking about, is suddenly she was shown an image or shown something. And that's the beginning of a Ruach HaKodesh, as it's called. Thank you for sharing, Jamie. Many blessings to you. Okay, who's next? Here's our friend Ozzy.
Oh, hello. How are you, Katz? How are you, Ollie?
We are doing great. Where in the world are you, Ozzy?
I am in Jerusalem, actually.
Wow, amazing technology. We can speak to people from all over Israel. Yeah, yes, Ali, what did you want to share with us tonight?
I had a very, very powerful visualizations with the connect when you were talking about people connecting. It was kind of visualizing big, massive, millions of foot tall trees with light coming out of it. Everyone all around the globe reaching up. Very powerful. Thank you very much. I specifically wanted to ask about you mentioned about that there's a way to release lust in the things that we're chasing, and this experience definitely was that type of connecting type of experience that I seek, and was very clear to me that that's really the type of thing that I'm seeking. But you said there was a way to do that with lust specifically. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Right. So there's a technique which is the core meditation, one of the 2 or 3 core meditational techniques from the Baal Shem Tov called halot midot or halot machshavat, which is the rewiring of the emotional associations and stripping off the negative, destructive versions of that, and then finding wholly positive versions of it, and then connecting that to its source. It's a 3-step process. When I have worked in the past with individuals more intensively, and I work in a seminar online program before a group, and I'm working with individuals who are dealing with addiction, there's usually 2 things that I try and teach people. The first thing is how to do, what I call the backwards work, which is, I think, the main body of the 12 steps, which is, Ozzy, you go into Dvakus, you learn how to get to that state, and you bring up your addictions and your associations, and you learn how to release them in real time into the light. And basically you bring up trauma, but in a very controlled state of consciousness, of deeper connection that you were just in. Right? It's not just experiencing the light and the blissful state, but if you're in that, what you just were now, and then I teach you how to bring up those destructive emotions. Then what you can do is you can literally learn how to rewire them in real time. Basically what you do is you bring up a lustful thought, a particular association, and what you do is you realize that there's divinity in that. There's a positive way to channel that. So you don't see it as the enemy. You see it as, a poor child. It's called bonim. In the Midas are called children, right? In Kabbalah. So what you basically do is you reduce, called hachna is the first step, is you see the good within it, and therefore you reduce the negative association by kind of eliminating it. That's the first step of the process. The second is you try and find what is the good. It's an experiential thing. What is the good way that this could be channeled? That's called Havdalah. And then the third is now you rechannel it by re-energizing it, it's called Oilava V'Nichlal, by elevating it and reintegrating it back into your superconsciousness, back into the higher state. And at that moment, it realigns and kind of calibrates itself. And if you do that a few times over and over again for all different core emotions that we have, then it's the most, psychological, transformative, and healing thing that you can do. So the 2 things I try and teach people is, 1, how to do that deep inner work on the negative darkness within them. And then 2 is how to maintain and generate that connection for themselves in real time every single day. Like Ozzy, I don't know what you're dealing with, but in your own life, you will definitely find, at least for the next few hours, you have a much stronger willpower, much more clarity. It's much easier to take destructive emotions that come up and say, that's destructive, I'm not going after it. Because you've kind of recharged your consciousness. You've drawn in something called moichin, which is the clarity, the light of consciousness, which empowers your free will and capacity to choose. Now, if you plug in your phone every day to recharge, if you plug your Das Tachton into your Das Elyon, you recharge in that light every single day. If you had that experience once or twice a day and you taught yourself how to do it, so the self and the light is so much stronger. Then it allows you to choose right and smarter more frequently. So the 2 mechanisms are, 1, you want to release the destructive negativity and do that with a person. And that's what you're talking about. And the other thing is you want to teach them that maintenance level, right, is to how to tap in and to that resource state, to reaccess your source and that state every day, which gives you moichin and gives you energy and gives you the capacity to choose and change from there. So they're the core things to teach, and that's, I'm only giving you an abstract way right now, just as a teaching, not an experience. But that mechanisms of those 3 steps is how we elevate and transform all emotions. We acknowledge and see their destructive nature. We push them down so they don't control us. We find the good within them. We strip off the negative and we turn that good to the light. And we're slowly rewiring all our heart to do that. Does that make sense, Ozzy?
Does make sense. You give classes online specifically pertaining to that?
Elevationproject.com.
Elevationproject.com. My team actually set up a discount if people want to join it from this. I'd like to give everyone a helping hand to get into it. I'm going to feel like an idiot now. I don't remember what the code word was, but it was a very good discount. If people are interested, send an email to info@elevationproject.com, info@elevationproject.com, and ask for the password for this group. For Ellie Nash's kind of, what did you call it? Healing community? What was the term you used?
I have no idea. It's 12 Steps 2020, all capital, 12 Steps.
12 Steps 2020. If you go to the elevationmastery.com.
Not written out, 12 Steps 2020.
Elevationmastery.com, and you select the main program, you get a discount for the first month. When it says enter the code, it's, what was it called again?
I put it into the...
There it is, 12 Steps 2020. If you want to send an email, you want help, you can go to info@elevationproject.com. We have hundreds of people in the core part of the program. Thousands have come through it around the world. And we teach, again, I'm not here to sell it to you. We're trying to make this stuff available as much as we can. You know, we don't have funding. We're not getting rich. We're just trying to stay alive and survive right now. But we're doing our best to make these teachings available. I wish someone taught them to me in my journey. And we're all thrilled that we can share this with you all right now. I hope that helps, Ozzy.
Thank you so much, guys.
There's a gentleman who says, those who pay attention.
That's a good line. If he would like to do marketing for us, he's hired. Okay.
Should we bring up one more?
One more. Who's this guy, Ryan? Let's help Ryan with his problems.
Yeah, Ryan should hop on, but he likes to stay in the background sometimes.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
You guys hear me?
We hear you.
No, we can't.
You can't?
Yes, we can. Hi, Nathan. How are you doing?
Thank God. Thank you, first of all. Thank you so much, Rob, Doniel, and Ellie, for putting this together. This was such a beautiful experience.
Pleasure.
I don't know when was the last time like I cried that hard, honestly. Like there was a point where I was just like by the Tzadikim, and like my grandfather also just passed away recently. So it was my grandfather, my Levi Yitzchak Badichev, and my Rebbe now all forming into like this one being of light. And I just broke down, and I was just like getting held into it. Was just so holy and beautiful and releasing, and I don't know. So thank you.
Amazing.
And my question is, though, there was still, while we were ending, there was still a part that was still not connected and uncertain. Is that something that comes up? Is it something that happens? Is there something to do about it afterwards now?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, this is like, we're in the supermarket. I'm saying, hey, try this new biscuit, and I give you a crumb, and then you walk off, right? So this is a taste test just to show you what's possible for your own soul and your own consciousness. There's a thing called Shlema Sudas, and Shlema Sudas, which means the perfection of consciousness. And all we are looking to do is bring more and more of our darkness back into the light, right? So a person, you know, I'm not an addict, and relatively speaking, I'm healthy, but there's many people that are more healthy than me, and I've got stuff. And as you go through your life, and the more you learn Devekas, the more you learn Avodas Hashem, and the more you learn Amunah and Tikkun Amidus, more and more of your consciousness of light, of good, of blessing, of mindfulness, of awareness expands. And it expands the way I used to be like this. It starts as an akud of a dot, and it expands until I'm more conscious, I'm more aware, I'm more mindful, I have more free will, I have more faith. And most people are unhealthy. Their das is in gullus. Their mind is controlled by their lust, by their fear, by their expectations, by their trauma. By the unhealthy people means that the conscious true nature of self is basically exiled, hidden, concealed by the fear, the doubt, the lust, the pain, the ego, right? That's basically the addict's mind. And there's no self to choose. There's no self to believe, to have trust, to have faith, to love themselves, etc., to heal themselves. So when I do inner work, when I do tikkun amidus, I do something what's called, I expand the gvul of kedusha. That means I can't pay attention because I have this fear all the time coming up, this fear, and I can't pay attention. So I heal the fear and I release the fear and I bring the fear back up, the good energy within it to my mind. And then my das expands, and then my das expands. And the more work I do, the more I reclaim my consciousness from the parts of my consciousness that have gone over to trauma. They're called clippers. And I release that and it comes back more. So what just happened right now is you had whatever consciousness you have, you're here, you've worked on yourself, you're into holy, tzadikim. So, there's a good part of you there. But like all of us, you've gone through stuff in this life and other stuff. You have fear, you have doubt, you have issues, right? We all have issues. Great. So what just happened is your nefesh elokis, your das, your keter, your das elyon, your chachma, you expanded into the fuller version of yourself. And you released, crying is release. Crying is what happens when we release things. So you brought up a certain amount of fear or doubt or pain, whatever you've gone through, and released it, right? But of course you didn't go all the way into everything in your life, because then you'd be Mashiach and a Tzaddik Yisrael Olam, which you're Geshmak Yid, but you're not quite there yet. Me neither. Right. So great. So there's parts of us that don't want to enter the light. There's parts that need something else, that needs a tikkun, that needs healing with someone else. There's things that you're not even willing to confront yet within yourself. Do you know what I mean? You've done this much work, but you haven't done this much work. That's normal. As Rabbi Nachman says, Rabbi Nosson says, when a person has to do tshuva, tzurich lahamtim, you have to wait, because every part of your consciousness has the right time to come up for you to own and heal. And you can't always access and heal all the levels. It's like the levels of the onion skin. Parts of your mind, parts of your trauma, parts of your pain, parts of your bad midas that are in your consciousness, that's what you're supposed to work through now. And there's other parts that are very deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you lift up one, then the next one can come up, the next one can come up, right? That's why you have to wait to do tshuva, according to Rabbi Nachman, because everything's going to come up in the right time. So Nassim, it's not at all a contradiction to say so much of yourself just opened up and you got so much breakthrough, but there's a part that doesn't trust the breakthrough. There's a part that doubts that, is it going to last? Is it going to heal? There's parts of me that feels so traumatized and abandoned and alone because something that happened when I was 3 years old, that it's not willing to trust or enter into this, right? So it's going to hold on. And that's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing. So you moved yourself 10 steps forward. And we're all here to dedicate our lives to growth. Surprise, surprise, when a person is no longer an addict, they've still got a lifetime of junk to work through. Ellie, and not as a spoiler alert for yourself. And that's the deal. So you did great, and there's other parts holding on. And you, what you should do now, Nelson, is do a cheshbon nefesh. Wow, what part is that? Where in my body is that, right? Is it feeling doubt? Is it feeling pain? You can literally go back to that light within you right now, and you can tune into it, just that part in your body, and say, is it anxiety? Is it lust? Is it fear? Is there a reason it didn't want to go there? You can just tune into it. Remember, becoming aware, becoming conscious of something is the beginning of transforming it.
Right, but
so
then what?
Okay, so Rome wasn't built in a day, and Lahavdil Elef neither is a year. So what happens is, first I want you to understand what it is and listen to it. And the next time you're meditating, I want you to go specifically to that point and invite it to the meditation session. Invite that into the light. When you're in that beautiful place, when you're crying, now you know this is there. And you literally, Rabbi Nachman says, it's like you drag it into the circle of dancing. Right? It's those people who don't want to dance in the circle. If Rabbi Nachman says, whenever you see a group of people dancing in the shul, there's always two guys that, I'm not going to dance. Everyone's trying to drag them into the circle, and they're like, I don't want to. I'm just going to sit over here. I'm too caught in my catness to get up and dance right now. So Rabbi Nachman says we have to grab those dark parts of ourselves and bring them into the light, bring them into the dvekas. So become aware of it right now, understand it. What is its voice? What is its journey? What's its narrative? It's a clipper. And then when you get back to that moment of blessing, then actually consciously bring that up. And that's the beginning of it being healed too. I hope that you're welcome. Be blessed. Sei gesund, Nassim.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you, Rav Katz.
Thank you, Rev Eli. Kol hakavod on the incredible work you're doing. Last night, every night, you're reaching hundreds and hundreds of people. It's like really amazing. The tremendous skills you have.